Here's a truth that will rearrange how you see every meal you've ever eaten. You are only 10% human. The other 90% of the cells living inside you are microbial. They outvote your DNA, control your moods, manufacture your vitamins, and decide whether your immune system protects you or attacks you. And every single time you eat fermented food, you are not just consuming calories. You are downloading new biological software directly into your gut. But here's the catch, and the reason this video matters. Download the right code, and you unlock energy, clarity, and immunity our ancestors took for granted. Download the wrong code, hidden inside a deceptive jar on a supermarket shelf, and you trigger a systemic immune war inside your own body. Today, we separate the miracles from the mistakes. 5 fermented foods your body is begging for, and 5 that are quietly poisoning millions. We're counting down from number 5 to number 1. And trust me, the number 1 fraud on the danger list is sitting in 80% of refrigerators right now, including, very possibly, yours. Foods your body is begging for. Number 5, kvass, the blood and liver tonic. What if I told you the deep, persistent tiredness you've been blaming on age, on stress, on bad sleep, isn't actually any of those things? What if it's just a clogged liver, and there's a 4-ounce drink that's been quietly fixing this exact problem for 600 years? That drink is kvass, fermented beet juice, and it does something almost no other food can do. It thins your bile. Bile is the dark fluid your liver uses to grab toxins, old hormones, and heavy metals and flush them out of your body. When bile gets thick and sluggish, those toxins recirculate. They build up, you get tired, foggy, and dull-skinned. When bile flows again, your liver finally does its job, and the difference is something you can feel within an hour. Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish grandmothers brewed this every spring as a blood cleanser. They didn't know the biochemistry, they just knew it worked. Drink 4 ounces in the morning, and within 60 minutes, there's a clarity in your head and a warmth in your gut that no amount of coffee can fake. Your skin brightens, your eyes clear. The exhaustion you thought was permanent often isn't. Number 4, natto, the heart's eraser. Most people in the West would take one look at number 4 and call it revolting. In Japan, it's eaten every morning. And Japan happens to have one of the lowest rates of heart attack death on Earth. That's not a coincidence. That's an enzyme. Natto is fermented soybeans, sticky and stringy and stubborn smelling. But hidden inside it is a single compound called nattokinase. And nattokinase is the only food on the planet that actively dissolves the gunk already inside your arteries. Think about that. Blood thinners from the pharmacy stop new clots from forming. Nattokinase reaches into your bloodstream and breaks apart the old ones, like a tiny plumber unclogging a pipe that's been narrowing for 30 years. And it works while you sleep. If you have a family history of stroke, blood clots, or stubborn high blood pressure, this is the one fermented food you should not negotiate on. 2 tablespoons, 3 or 4 mornings a week. Within 90 days, your circulation is measurably different. Your hands stay warm, your head feels clearer, your blood pressure starts to drift downward without you doing anything else. Number 3, kimchi, the metabolic ignition. Here's a question worth sitting with. Why is Korea, a country that eats massive plates of food at every meal, also one of the leanest countries on Earth? The answer is sitting on every Korean table, 3 times a day. Kimchi. Kimchi isn't just spicy cabbage. It's garlic, ginger, chili, scallions, and lactic acid bacteria fused together into something that literally turns your body into a furnace. You burn calories digesting it faster than you absorb them. But that's the small benefit. The real magic is what kimchi does to your blood sugar. Clinical trials, real ones, in real journals, show that 1 serving a day specifically attacks insulin resistance and visceral belly fat. That's the dangerous fat. Not the soft stuff under your skin, but the hard fat wrapped around your liver and pancreas. The fat that drives diabetes, heart disease, and even dementia. Kimchi melts it quietly, daily, while you eat. 1 serving a day. That's the dose. Treat it like medicine that happens to taste incredible. Number 2, kefir, the 30-strain commander. If you wake up craving sugar, if your brain feels foggy by 3 p.m., if your skin breaks out for no reason, and infections keep coming back, you don't have a willpower problem. You have a candida problem. And number 2 on this list is the single most powerful weapon against it. Yogurt gets all the marketing. But yogurt is a peasant compared to kefir. A typical cup of yogurt contains 2 or 3 strains of bacteria. Kefir, real, traditional kefir, contains up to 30 different species of bacteria and yeasts, all working together. This isn't a probiotic. This is an entire microscopic city in a glass. What does that city do for you? It hunts down Candida, the parasitic yeast that drives sugar cravings, brain fog, chronic fatigue, and recurring vaginal infections. Studies on women's health consistently show kefir restoring vaginal microbial balance better than some pharmaceutical treatments. And for men, the same internal cleanup translates into clearer thinking, fewer cravings, and noticeably better skin. 4 ounces on an empty stomach every morning. Within 2 weeks, most people report the same 3 things: less sugar hunger, deeper sleep, and a face that finally clears. Kefir came from the Caucasus Mountains, by the way, a region famous for villages full of people who casually live past 100. The grains were guarded like gold and passed down for generations. They knew something. We're just catching up. Number 1, raw sauerkraut, the vitamin C battery. And at number 1, the king of all ferments, the cheapest, oldest, and most universally healing food on this entire list. Captain Cook sailed around the world for 3 years with barrels of this stuff in his ship's hold and lost not a single sailor to scurvy. The British Navy thought it was witchcraft. It wasn't. It was raw sauerkraut, and it was working a miracle modern science only decoded recently. Fermenting cabbage multiplies its vitamin C by 20 times. A few forkfuls have more usable vitamin C than a glass of orange juice, without the sugar. The fermentation also unlocks compounds called isothiocyanates, which are the closest thing nature has to a built-in cancer alarm system, especially for the colon and breast. But the real superpower is what sauerkraut does before digestion even starts. 2 tablespoons before a meal reacidify your stomach acid. And stomach acid is what unlocks the iron, zinc, magnesium, and B12 from every other food on your plate. Without it, you're peeing out the nutrients you paid for. With it, you're absorbing 2 to 3 times more from the same meal. Now here's the catch, and this is critical. Raw sauerkraut is the king. Cooked or pasteurized sauerkraut is a corpse. The instant heat touches it, every bacterium dies. Every benefit evaporates. The jar on the warm grocery shelf next to the ketchup, dead, worthless. The jar in the cold section, cloudy and bubbling, sometimes hissing when you open it. That is the medicine, the cheapest medicine on earth, and the easiest one to ruin by buying the wrong jar. Foods that are actually not safe. Number 5, moldy or surface-contaminated ferments. The mycotoxin trap. We start the danger countdown with a mistake almost every home fermenter has made, and it can quietly cost you your liver. You open your jar of homemade kraut and see a white film on top. Most people panic. Sometimes that's harmless, a thing called calm yeast. Ugly, but cosmetic. You can scrape it off and move on. But green, black, pink, or fuzzy mold is something else entirely. That's not yeast. That's a chemical weapon. Those colored molds produce poisons called mycotoxins. Think of them as invisible roots that grow downward into the food long before you ever see fuzz on the surface. By the time you spot the mold, the entire jar is already laced. The folk advice, just scrape the top off, is one of the most dangerous pieces of kitchen wisdom ever passed down. Mycotoxins survive boiling, washing, scraping, and freezing. Nothing kills them once they're in. And what they do inside you is permanent. Long-term exposure scars the liver, damages the kidneys, and has been linked to chronic fatigue, autoimmune flares, and certain cancers. The rule is simple and brutal. When in doubt, throw it out. A $5 batch of cabbage is never worth your liver. Number 4, high histamine ferments, the silent allergy trigger. Number 4 is the trap nobody warns you about. And it's quietly destroying millions of people who think they're eating clean. Picture this. You eat fermented food because everyone says it's healthy. 30 minutes later, you have a migraine. Your face flushes. Your heart races. Anxiety washes over you for no reason. You blame stress. You blame age. You blame your job. You never blame the aged cheese or the 3-month-old kraut sitting in your fridge. But that's exactly the culprit. Aged cheeses, long-fermented sausages, old sauerkraut batches, and certain wines build up enormous levels of a compound called histamine as they age. Histamine is the same chemical your body releases during an allergic reaction, except now you're eating it directly. For about 1 in 50 adults, likely far more, the body can't break it down fast enough. The result is what doctors call histamine intolerance. Instant migraines, skin flushing, hives, racing pulse, anxiety, and a stuffy nose that mimics a cold. The cruelest part? These victims often double down on healthy, fermented foods to fix their symptoms, and the symptoms get worse. If any of this sounds like you, eliminate fermented foods for 2 weeks. If the symptoms vanish, you have your answer. Stick to fresh, short fermented batches only, and treat aged ferments like the loaded weapons they are. Number 3. Conventional miso, the glyphosate concentrator. Miso is a beautiful food. Conventional miso is a chemical disaster sold to you in slow motion. Soy is one of the most heavily sprayed crops on the planet, drenched in glyphosate and a cocktail of pesticides from seed to harvest. Now imagine taking that already poisoned soy and fermenting it for months or even years. The pesticides don't fade, they concentrate. The fermentation process pulls the water out, binds the chemicals into the paste, and you end up with a small spoonful that delivers a pesticide dose far higher than the original bean ever held. And here's the brutal irony. Glyphosate's most documented effect on the human body is destroying gut bacteria. So you're paying premium health food prices for a product that's actively killing the microbiome. The probiotics inside it are supposed to feed. The good guys and the bad guys are in the same jar, and the bad guys are winning. The rule is non-negotiable. If your miso isn't certified organic and non-GMO, it doesn't belong in your kitchen. There is no acceptable middle ground. Number 2. Commercial kombucha. The sugar trap and acetaldehyde risk. The original kombucha, brewed for 2,000 years, was a sour, lightly fizzy fermented tea, almost no sugar, and barely drinkable to a modern palate. Then the wellness industry got hold of it, and kombucha was hijacked. Today's mass-market kombucha often contains 20 grams of added sugar per bottle just to make it taste like soda. And this creates an absolutely brutal paradox. The probiotics inside are supposed to fight Candida, the yeast that thrives on sugar. But the added sugar feeds that exact same Candida faster than the probiotics can suppress it. You're paying $8 for a bottle that's running a civil war against itself. Your gut is just the battlefield. It gets worse. Improperly brewed kombucha, especially homemade batches that ferment too long or get contaminated, can produce a compound called acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is the toxin in alcohol that gives you a hangover. It's also a known carcinogen. Chronic exposure has been linked to brain fog, liver stress, and slow-burning inflammation that lasts for years. If you drink kombucha, hunt for brands with under 4 grams of sugar per bottle. Better yet, brew your own and watch the temperature carefully. Number 1. Store-bought pickles. The dead deception. And here is number 1, the biggest fermented fraud on Earth. The jar in 80% of refrigerators on this planet right now, including, very likely, yours. Go to your kitchen tonight. Open the fridge, pick up the pickle jar, turn it around and read the label. You will probably see 4 words: vinegar, salt, water, and yellow dye, number 5. That is not a fermented food. That is a corpse soaked in industrial acid. Real pickles are lacto-fermented in salt brine for weeks, alive, cloudy, bubbling, and full of the same probiotic power as raw sauerkraut. But modern commercial pickles are dunked in vinegar and then pasteurized with heat, which kills every living microbe in the jar. What you've been eating, possibly your entire life, is biologically dead. Worse, you get massive sodium loading without the living bacteria that would normally protect your body from its inflammatory effect. You get the illusion of eating something healthy while your gut quietly deteriorates. Here's the test that will save you forever. If the jar is shelf-stable at room temperature for a year, it is dead. Real ferments live in the cold section, cloudy and a little wild-looking, often hissing when you crack the lid. This is the number 1 mistake because it is the most universal. Billions of jars sold every year, marketed as health food, delivering nothing but salt and lies. Go check your fridge tonight. The truth is, waiting on the back of that label. Conclusion: the sovereign fermenter. Here's what 1,500 years of human wisdom and 50 years of microbiome research are finally saying, in the same voice for once. Don't buy your life in a plastic jar. Real fermentation is not a product. It's a relationship between you, your kitchen, your hands, and the invisible world of microbes that built every traditional culture on Earth. Our great-grandmothers made medicine in clay crocks on kitchen counters. The food industry took that medicine, sterilized it, sweetened it, dyed it yellow, and shrink-wrapped it for a profit margin. Almost nothing of the original healing remains. The test is simple. If it's shelf-stable and clear, it's dead. If it's cloudy and bubbling and a little wild, it's medicine. Your gut knows the difference. Your hormones know the difference. Your mind, when the brain fog finally lifts, will know the difference too. The body isn't begging for more pills, more supplements, or more clever marketing. It's begging for a return to the living foods our great-grandmothers made in clay crocks on kitchen counters, while they sang and gossiped and trusted the unseen forces that have always kept us alive. Comment alive below. If you want my personal step-by-step guide on how to ferment safely at home, the same 5-jar starter system I teach my private students. It costs nothing. It changes everything.